Welcome to another Healing Oracle update. I'm Robert J. Morris, and the following is a recap of an interview conducted in May 2016 with a patient of ours named Sarah. She managed to cure herself of cancer utilizing the tools and knowledge attained from Amanda Mary Jewell during her process at La Flor de la Salud. That's in Puebla, Mexico. To begin with, we'll start with a reference video and some shorts that were taken during the month of their initial stay in 2016. And then we'll follow up with the interview that I just conducted this year in January.
All right, everybody, we're here with Sarah and Simon. How are you guys doing today?
Great, cheers. Yeah.
What we're doing here today is just to talk about your experience since you got here. Now, what date did you guys arrive?
Cool, I don't know, it was a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? It's all gone so fast.
The 10th of May.
10th of May.
Yeah, the 10th of May.
You're right, it does go by quick.
Yeah.
So that's about 2 weeks. How has the overall, I guess you'd say, how has it been here at the clinic since you guys arrived? I know there was a bit of a toss-up at the beginning. Accommodations, moving from one to the other. But aside from all that, how have you found it?
Brilliant. Yeah, I think everybody's been really friendly, haven't they?
Yeah, very welcoming.
And the kids are enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
You know, he was looked after brilliantly.
Kids are entertained?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's going to be a struggle because we have a 4-year-old and a 3-month-old, so...
So maybe it's extra, isn't it? You know, because of 3-month-old.
Making sure that they've got stuff to do.
Well, it's good that there's two of you. And you got some help here as well, yeah?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your condition, Sarah. What was it? I understand you were pregnant when you were diagnosed with breast cancer.
I was 16 weeks pregnant, so about 4 months pregnant, and I'd noticed that I'd had a lump before I fell pregnant, and the doctors had said not to worry about it, it was just a lumpy breast, and something instinctively made me go and get a second opinion, so I went to the doctors again, and they referred me through to a specialist clinic. They did further tests, and they came back with the news that yes, it was indeed a grade 2 carcinoma, ductal carcinoma. So yeah, two lumps they found in my breast.
Wow. And so from then to now, like I guess, how many months has it been?
9 months.
About 9, eh?
Yeah.
Wow. So how had that progressed? Because you've only been here 2 weeks, so...
So when I found out, everything from the NHS's point of view was very quick. They wanted to have me operate. Their recommendation was to do an operation, to do a mastectomy, and to do that in, say, I think it was about 5 days from when I was actually speaking with them, in 5 days' time. And so I went in the following day for a the pre-assessment for your operation, see if you're fit enough to have an operation. So I went and had all of that done, and they said that that was fine, not a problem, but I'd still needed to go back and give consent, and I still wasn't 100% sure I was doing the right thing, because obviously my main concern was keeping the baby safe, and it just didn't sit right with me. I'd always known that I wouldn't do chemotherapy and radiation because I've known the risks associated to that, and how I think it's, effectively poisoning yourself to get well again. It doesn't make sense to me.
It's not logical.
Yeah. Exactly. It wasn't something that I ever wanted to do, but I was a bit unsure as to whether or not I might have the mastectomy just to get the tumours away from me, and then I would heal myself. But I decided that...
It seems rational at the time, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It's like a time bomb, and you want it away from you, so it doesn't go off inside of you. But I had my baby to think about, and I didn't want to put my baby in any unnecessary danger. It's a very fierce bond between a mother and their child, whether they're in their womb or they're running around. So I based my decisions on the safety of my child, really. And when I spoke to the anaesthesist guy who talked about whether or not they would be able to monitor the baby to make sure the baby was safe, they kind of said that they wouldn't monitor the baby, they would just monitor me. I knew that the baby wasn't at a viable age, so there would be no intervention, the baby would just miscarry. Then he went on to talk about an analogy of if I were a dog.
Whoa.
Yeah, if it was a dog, I think he said that the dog would know that it could go on and have further pups, so it would miscarry its pups. And I'm sat there thinking, why on earth are you turning this into an analogy of a dog? This is me and my baby.
That's horrible.
So, yeah, but it was at that point where I just thought, no one's looking out for my baby here, and I just thought, it's too much of a risk. I just can't, if I'd have gone through the operation and woken up and they had said, I'm sorry, Sarah, but you lost the baby, then I almost knew that the cancer probably would have killed me because of the grief of losing the baby.
Yeah.
And I just knew that I couldn't do that. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
So here we are. We're back with Simon and Sarah, who visited the La Flor de la Salud clinic in Mexico, in Puebla. And they were with us for an extended period of time due to, well, I might as well let Sarah explain the story. And would you like to introduce yourself, Sarah?
Hi, Robert. Hi. Yeah, I'm Sarah. And I came to the clinic back in, I think it was May 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So a little while back now. And we were only due to come for 3 weeks for the 3-week program, and we ended up staying for 4 weeks because I needed extensive dental treatment. So they just couldn't get it done in the 3 weeks. So we had to stay for an extension for another week, I think it was. Yeah.
Right. Now, you were there being treated for breast cancer. Now, do you want to kind of go through the little story of what happened when you first found out about it?
Okay. So I was 4 months pregnant at the time. I'd felt a lump before I even fell pregnant, but it was one of those things. I actually went to the doctor and I kind of got them to check it out, and they said, oh, it's probably just, it's probably nothing. It doesn't feel sinister. It's, come back in, say, 3 weeks, 4 weeks time, and we'll have another feel and see what we think. That was just a local GP.
Right.
And so I kind of left it, and I don't know, I wasn't really worried about it. Well, I was to begin with, and then when they had said that to me, it kind of calmed my nerves, and I thought, okay, so they don't think it's anything, so maybe it isn't. And then it's so difficult to get an appointment. You have to, if you're going to make an appointment for a month's time, it's really difficult. They're like, oh, well, you can only do it in say 2 or 3 weeks time, and so then it became a bit of a palaver. So I just kind of left it for a bit.
Right.
And then I fell pregnant, and that was fantastic news for us. We've been trying for some time, and so then it kind of, my focus was more on, oh, I'm pregnant now, rather than, oh, I have a lump in my breast,
Mm-hmm.
because they'd already said it was anything sinister. So anyway, when I was pregnant, I don't know what it was, whether it was an instinctive thing or whether it was a nesting thing. I was just kind of going through my to-do list of things I needed to just do before the baby came.
Right.
And so one of those things was, oh, maybe have another checkup at the doctor's just so that they can tell me that, oh, actually, that's fine. There's nothing to worry about. So I went to another GP within the same practice, and she said to me, oh, it doesn't feel sinister. She said the same thing. She said, however, I've had this happen before personally. And she said that she was going to refer me to the specialist breast care unit so that they could just confirm either way what it was, because she said, oh, because you'll just worry if it stays there. So, if we send you there, then they can tell you either way. She goes, but I'm not worried about it.
Right.
So then I was referred through, and then they made an appointment, and actually I cancelled the appointment, I think, because we had family come down, and then so it was a long-winded, drawn-out thing, and then unfortunately our cat died, and that was horrendous.
Oh my!
I know. So then I had the appointment no, actually I think I had the appointment before the cat died. Sorry, I'm going on, and then only a few days before. And then the cat died, and then I went back 7 days later, I think it was, and then I was actually diagnosed with breast cancer. I was like, what is going on in this world?
Wow, when it rains, it pours, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything just kept coming at us, So, so at that point, I was 4 months pregnant. I'd been diagnosed with, what was it? Ductal carcinoma. Invasive ductal carcinoma is the actual diagnosis.
Right.
And they'd said there were 2 lumps there, and they had said that they'd had their multidisciplinary meeting, and they decided that what they wanted to do was remove the entire breast because of where it was. They said it would become the breast, what would have been left over would have been a bit deformed.
All right. The whole cut it out technique.
Yeah. So because of that, they wanted to just take the entire breast away. And then they talked about how they would book me to do that. I think I was diagnosed, it was the 19th of August, and it was a Wednesday. And that was in 2005. No, sorry, 2015.
Right.
And then they had said, well, we can book you in next Friday for the operation. So, that's really no time at all, is it? And
really?
And then they'd sort of talked about how, once that had happened, I would then see an oncologist and they would discuss chemotherapy and radiation with me.
Right.
I went away a little bit shell-shocked of, oh my God, I'm pregnant.
And with your pregnancy in the balance, sorry to cut you off, but with your pregnancy in the balance, what were their concerns and advice in that regard?
It was weird. They didn't really, I don't focus on the baby. They just kept focusing on me. And then they were talking about, they talked about how I needed to think of the bigger picture, how I already had a 4-year-old, and I needed to think about that. And I thought, well, I already have a 4-year-old, but yeah, I also have a baby in my tummy. Just because I'm pregnant, it's still, to me, it's a baby.
Right.
Doesn't matter, it's only 4 months old. It's still my child. So I was a bit uncomfortable about it. And then I went back I decided that I would go away and I would think long and hard, and I would try and make an informed choice, and I would weigh up all the options, and I would even make a list of all the pros and cons of actually having it done against not having it done.
Right.
And so I had the pre-assessment, which is where they see whether or not you're fit enough for an operation. And when I went into that, they weighed me, they asked lots of questions, they did my blood pressure, all things like that. And I remember at that appointment, or just when we were leaving that appointment, I just came over really, really emotional. And I just had this feeling, this instinctive feeling to run as fast as I could away from that hospital. And, I was like, what am I doing in here? This is not right. This is not right. And from that moment, I think that's what helped me make the decision of I can't do this. Because at that appointment, I'd also asked to speak with an what are they called?
Anaesthetist.
Thank you. I asked to talk to him because I wanted to know who would be looking after the baby during the operation.
Right, naturally. I could never say that word either.
No.
I don't know, I'll manage that.
So when I spoke with him, we talked at length about, who would monitor me, what were the chances, how many people that are pregnant have operations, have big operations, what are the statistics around, is that a good idea? And so he kind of did this thing where he kind of made this analogy of how if I were a dog, I would have, if I were to lose the pup, I'd go on to have, what was it he said? I'd go on to
he just said the body knows how to react. So if it felt that it was in danger, it would abort the baby, naturally do that. Yeah. But that's not really much sort of comfort to a mother trying to protect.
But then I'd go, then I'd know that I could go on and have more children, so that would be all right. And I was like, what?
I think the other thing as well is we did ask them about, chemotherapy. Obviously, I already knew that it's quite a toxic substance that you're taking. But when we asked, I can't remember if it was one of the nurses or something who dealt with all the chemotherapy side of things. She said, we asked, is it toxic to unborn? And she basically said, no, it won't harm your baby. And I was like, even then, before I even researched it, I thought, I don't sound right to me. The way she said, no, there's no harm in that whatsoever.
We quite jovially, oh my God, I can't speak. What's that word?
I don't know.
Jovially.
It sounds like you got chemo brains there.
I've had no chemo.
What are you in at it?
Anyway. We nicknamed her Chemo Eyes because she came right up at me
and stared with the most intense
right
stare.
In me with this most intense stare of chemotherapy is not dangerous, and I was like, I need to leave this room. This woman's freaking me out. So
wow.
Anyway, so then we went home and just I always knew that I would never do chemo and radiation, and my father had had cancer, and I'd watched him have that treatment, and I literally watched it take 20 years off of him.
Yeah.
Over, you know, he got so poorly, and I just thought, why are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah, I watched the same thing happen to my grandmom as well, and it was just awful to see, and it didn't take very long either.
No, and it really is poison, you know, and you can see that your body is, you know, anyway.
That's another story, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's a personal choice as well. People have that choice, you know, it's up to them which route that they take. But for me, that was my personal opinion of.
Yeah.
I just thought that wasn't the route for me.
Absolutely. Now, backing up a little bit to the testing procedures. Now, did they give you a biopsy?
Yeah, they did. And now, unfortunately, at that time, I was very much at the mercy of them because I didn't really have my enlightenment until I kind of left that pre-assessment that assessment that I was telling you about, where I kind of thought this is wrong, and then I went away and did so much research. But before that, I was kind of very much in their hands, and I was kind of almost doing as I was told, rather than realizing that actually I want to know what you're doing to me, and what is this procedure for, and why, you know. Before I was much more trusting, whereas now I know that it's wise to take your own choices and make your own informed choices. And had I known what I know now, I would never have had that biopsy. But then I guess I would never have had the diagnosis either. But I think the thing that upset me was that when they did the biopsy, they also put titanium markers in the tumours.
Right.
So,
that's what they do. Yes.
Yeah, and you know, I never really thought about it. When they did it at the time, they never really asked me if they could do it. They just went ahead and did it. I guess because I was there, that was like presumed consent perhaps. But for me, I guess I really never really thought too much about stuff like that. And had I probably wouldn't have done that.
Well, they kind of have a tendency to push you through the gates like chattel, you know, and they also, you know, they depend on your ignorance in order to push their, I don't want to say agenda, but to push their products, to push their, you know, to push their knowledge onto you. You know what I mean? And I think the point of this whole video at the end of it all, if the viewer is trying to ascertain what it is basically for others to empower themselves and to know that there's other options available. But, sorry, moving along though. So after doing a bunch of research, I reckon it was around that time when you probably found Mary.
Well, yeah. That was kind of like, you know, throughout this whole journey, everything has been fateful, I believe. You know, we were always destined to meet Mary. I do believe that. And, you know, it was just through chance, through a client that Simon had.
But it wasn't chance. I never believe in chance.
No, I guess not. You could see it as chance, but actually Simon had a client that he had done some work for who had that link in with Mary.
Right.
So we had spent some time. Well, when we told him what had happened to us, he came round and spent the evening, and he told us about somebody that he knew that might be able to help. So that was our route into finding Mary. And then I did send probably a very long email to maybe 3 or 4 people that I'd been given their contact details of this person might be able to help you. And bless, I think Mary was the only person that responded to me.
Oh, wow.
But then I was told Mary would probably not respond to me. So, you know, so I'm glad that she did respond to me, of course, very much so.
Yeah.
But there you go. It was all, I think it was just meant to be, you know?
Right. Well, she is a busy lady, and she does try to get back to as many people as she can. And of course, you know, even given the circumstances, there's a high contingent of people who do try to waste her time. I mean, it's not anyone's fault. I mean, people are truly just looking for information, but, you know, she doesn't have all the time in the world sometimes. But, no, it's brilliant that you guys were able to connect. And where did it go from there? Was she,
So I sent an email, and then I think she may have sent an email back, and then we'd had a phone call. And from that phone call, she talked about how I needed to feel comfortable with her. She also needed to feel comfortable with me. She didn't want me to mess her around, and, you know, her time was precious, and she didn't like you talk about. And, you know, she wanted to know that that I was going to, you know, work hard and
take it seriously. Yeah,
take it seriously. Yeah,
but
yeah.
she said it's a two. You know, I think
It
the
was
thing Mary always said
two-way
it's a two-way thing. She goes, you know, it'd be good to us to meet because obviously, you know, Mary wanted to see us, and but she also said it'd be good for us to see her, so that you get, you know, because you can pick up whether you instantaneously trust someone or like them, can't you? You know,
Yeah.
She said, and if you don't
get
trust
that
me,
vibe.
then you shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's right. You need to obviously have trust in your doctor, don't you? Or, you know, anyone that's trying to help you like that. You've got to have that faith in what they're teaching you, because otherwise, you know, you're not going to get anywhere very fast. Otherwise, are you? You know, so
No.
So then we went and met with her. We went to her house that where she was staying at the time, and it was actually my birthday, wasn't it? I think,
yeah.
or the day before my birthday. So we woke up on my birthday,
there.
having met her, and she'd said because it was my birthday, she was going to get up and make me eggs. Bless her, and she did. But yeah, no. From that meeting, we talked about a lot, really, about the whole situation.
But before we even saw Mary, didn't she already start a protocol for you before we'd even met her, or did that come after? I thought she started that before. Didn't she someone email her?
Maybe.
Before we even met Mary, I think that she, you know, because she made contact with Sarah, she gave Sarah already, started her on, said this is what you need to initially start, you know, the basic foundation.
But it was a very, very light one because I was pregnant, you know, and actually she was taken into account very much so that I was pregnant, you know. She didn't want to give me anything that she thought might harm the baby in any way, or didn't know whether or not would. So therefore, if she didn't know, she wouldn't give it to me, you know.
Immediately her focus of priority has already switched over to the other life that was within you.
I was known as pregnant Sarah, you know, and yeah, even now I'm not pregnant. I think she even refers to me as pregnant Sarah. Probably I'll always be remembered as pregnant Sarah.
Wow. So now we're at the point, I guess, approximately where you're about to arrive to Mexico. And
before that, the baby was born. Nell was born, our youngest, and so we'd had a protocol when we came back from meeting Mary. Then I was very much on a protocol, and all the lifestyle changes kicked in, and I was super healthy, and I changed my diet. I looked after myself.
It was everything, wasn't it? It was physical. It was you know, there was the physical, you know, obviously Mary specialised in, you could say, in all the physical side of all the different supplements and taking care of that, you know, make Sarah to exercise, do all that sort of stuff. But then Sarah was working on any mental issues that she had from the past that she was withholding.
I spent a lot of time with a counsellor and really, really dug deep and, you know, really, really tried to get to the bottom of some of the demons that I'd been carrying around with for years. I'd suffered from anxiety and depression for many, many years. And so, you know, this was almost like an opportunity to say, right, okay, you need to fix yourself or we're going to kill you.
Oh, wow. Well, it's one of the other. Yeah. It's either you kill the cancer or the cancer's going to kill you.
Yeah. This was kind of like my last chance to actually, you know,
just put everything right.
Put everything into practice that I'd ever learned, you know, and go full throttle. So at that point, I went off work sick when I was diagnosed. And I think I spent 6 months off sick. But at that time, I was having Reiki. I was going to counselling. I was doing fitness. I was learning about food again. I was just doing loads of food prep all the time. Yeah. And then I went on maternity leave.
And I think and the other element as well, I think, which plays a big part, is the spiritual side of things as well.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Final. I think you have to have. Yeah. I think it's almost like you have to almost get the balance with all those sections. I think you have to take care physically. I think you have to look at any type of mental issue that may be creating problems within your body, and spiritual. So there's a lot of people that just don't connect with the universe in any way whatsoever, you know. And
this is true.
Not one of them, but when you start to open yourself up to it, you start to realise that it helps out there. You know, there's a lot of, you start to get guided. You know, you feel like you're getting guided around. So you start to come across all sorts of amazing people. You know, and you start to you start to find this knowledge that is all there. It is there for everyone. It's just that people are so blinkered. They're too busy looking at their phones these days, aren't they? You know, looking at social networks. They don't see what's right in front of their face half the time. You know,
this is true. Absolutely, it's almost like a learned obsolescence for, you know, for.
And I took things for granted, and I learned not to. and it was a big learning curve, and it was a scary one at times, but it really was a gift. It was a gift being diagnosed with cancer.
Wow. Well, that being said, now let's fast forward to where you're actually in Mexico, and
Okay.
you're getting your guts cleaned out, doing the colonics, and
So when I felt like it was my job to get Nell into the world safe and sound without any harm to her. So when she came, it was just incredible. It was such an incredible experience. And then we got her to 3 months, I think.
right.
Yeah, she was 3 months when we went to Mexico. We just wanted to get her strong enough so that she would be
Well, so her little immune system,
yeah,
we wanted to give it a few months before we took her abroad.
on the
Right.
plane. And
Absolutely.
so we got her to that point, and then it was kind of like, right, okay, everyone, it's time to sort me out. I've done my bit sorting Nelly out and getting her into the world, and now it was my turn. So I was a bit apprehensive about going, but I was excited, and I thought, right, now we're going to step it up a bit. We're going to start hitting my body with the stronger stuff, with the stuff that is really going to be beneficial. And I knew that there was going to be a lot of work because I had a lot of amalgam fillings. I had root canals. I had infection in my mouth, so I had lots of dental work to correct. So that was, I think I spent about 35 hours in a dentist chair in Mexico,
Wow.
all in all.
Wow.
Yeah, that was tough, but the most amazing dentist I've ever met in my life. She was incredible. Her name was Olivia, and she had an assistant called Vanessa, and they were such an incredible, compassionate pair of people. And although we didn't speak one another's language very well, we kind of,
Got past it.
Yeah, we did. We found a way.
You found a way to make it work, don't you?
Way. And I'll never forget. I've always hated dentists until then, always, which is really bizarre because I spent 35 hours in a chair with them yanking teeth out of my mouth. Back to the clinic after one night, and it was like I'd been in a fight, and everybody just took one look at me and they were like, get the doctor, she needs some pain medication.
That's hilarious.
Tears. But I knew that I had to go through all of that to heal. I knew that a lot of that needed to be rectified, and it was the same with the detoxing and the colonics and all the stuff that was uncomfortable. And I think I was on cabbage soup for about a week, and I was starving, and I was like, oh, this is horrendous. But, I knew that I had to, put that work in.
Right.
There's a lot of injections for it as well because of all the ozone treatment.
And I don't like needles, so that was really difficult. And I just had to suck it up. But you know what? I would have taken that over sitting in a chair and having chemo pumped into my body any day, because I would have been so sick and I would have been so poorly. And ever since, all of the treatments that I've had, I have just got better and better and better, and I've felt weller and I felt fitter and I felt stronger. So I've not had to feel sicker before I got well again.
This is good.
I've gone from strength to strength to strength. Even though there were some painful procedures, they didn't last very long. And actually, when I bounced back, I was fitter, stronger, healthier than I'd ever been. And, I mentioned about having depression and anxiety. I haven't suffered with that ever since I've been diagnosed. So I haven't had a bout of that for over 2 years now. And that's incredible for me, So that just goes to show me that there was an imbalance in my body that was creating that depression and anxiety for me. And once I addressed that and I healed those issues, I think it was a lot to do with guts. Good mental health.
Well, it's a snowball effect, but it works both directions. Like, you can get more depressed thinking about what a crappy situation you're in, you know what I mean? So it can snowball out of control in a downward fashion. However, when you're built up and propped up by a good support system and by good old-fashioned hard work, you can snowball upwards into a fantastic scenario.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was just gonna basically point out some key items for the listeners, and what we've so far basically gone into was getting rid of bad dental work, like amalgam fillings, root canals. And just so that the listener is aware, the reason for this is so that we can remove any potential infections that your immune system is concentrating and focusing on, other than the other bad bits in your body. And we also...
Can I mention, Robert, that when they did the magnet treatments on me, they found 18 infections in my body.
There you go.
They were like, wow, that's a lot of infection. I think that was the most that they had found. And then when they retested me after they had done all of the detox treatments at the end of my stay, every single one of those infections had healed.
Well, they was aiming. I don't know what the aim is.
80% was
well,
good.
I don't know. Yeah, 70 or 80%. There was by the time Sarah left, but she got 100%.
100%. So.
Right. So that extra week waiting for that dental work was worth it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Well, and then the other big thing also is about your ability to take in nutrients, and that's kind of where the colonics comes in. How did you feel about all of that?
It was kind of, I've never really done anything like that before. So it was kind of, I was like, oh my God. But, it was okay, It was all right. It was like, I think it was 7 days. It was just part of the process, I think. I just needed to just get on and do it,
Right on. So, okay, so you were there for 28 days, you said?
It's good 4 weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, 4 weeks.
Yeah, 28 days, 28. Okay, cool. And then, so then let's just say you finished all of your business there in Mexico. You're headed back home. How did you find sticking to the protocol? Now, I guess you'd already trained yourself prior to leaving for Mexico.
Definitely.
How did you find it at home, though?
No, it was fine. I was really strict before I went to Mexico. And actually, when I went to Mexico, they were offering me some food groups that I didn't eat. And I was like, oh, wow.
I didn't think I could eat that.
This is amazing. I really did. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Wow.
So,
you got to set the bar really low.
Yeah, I think I had probably, in fact, and actually maybe made myself a little miserable at times, but I had restricted myself too much, and it helped make me realize that actually there were certain things that I still could have. So when I came home, I became a little bit more relaxed. I wasn't as rigid, but I was still...
Yeah, still very strict with it.
I was still strict in what I had. I wouldn't, I wouldn't deviate from the foods.
Well, the protocol that Mary set, Sarah Rick, to be honest with you, she pretty much did stick to that like glue, really. I mean,
right.
Every day she'd be out for about 4 times a week. I mean, you still do it now, don't you?
Yeah.
Go for a run, and there was always the juice before you went off because obviously at some point you went back to work, so a juice would be made to take to work, and then at that point, Sarah would have to take all her own water, and she would take her, a lunch. She'd basically go off of bags full of a mini kitchen.
And all my colleagues would take the mickey out of me. Work with you. And actually some of those colleagues didn't really know of my personal circumstances, so I'd be like, oh yeah, just like to try and keep healthy.
But wouldn't it be a gobbuster if you actually told them, eh?
Some people know, and others don't. And I've always found it difficult to talk to people about it, because people's response when you tell them, oh, I was diagnosed with cancer, is that look of shock and horror. And it's just like, I don't really like doing that to people. And I've never really liked to be in the center of attention. So, I don't want to make a big thing out of it. So if the opportunity arises in the moment, has presented itself for me to share that, of course I will. But I was saying to you before, Robert, that I would like to, in the next sort of 6 months, maybe in the next year, put together a website or a blog or something where I can actually share my story. So
just to help other people, I think.
Absolutely, to support other people in a similar situation, just so they can realise that they've got choices. But, it's also about, it would be selfish for me to keep all of this knowledge.
Well, all the people that helped us, they've obviously learned from other people, and it always gets passed down. And I think, it'd be wrong for Sarah to, to have healed herself the way she's done it with all the help, and then not just share that, put it out there so that other people can find it.
Absolutely.
It's like doing the interview with you. We're sharing. It's quite right, because there's, although there's, there seems to be more and more people choosing what they could, they term the alternative health system, which actually is the true health system. Really.
Absolutely.
More and more people sort of going back and realising it's the way to go. But it just
But it's interesting because in the mainstream media, which I don't really listen much to these days, but more and more is being talked about in terms of immunotherapy for cancer treatments.
Yeah.
And oh yeah.
Well, here's a weird thing it's a little bit, it's not really off topic, but it's definitely up our alley here though, is that the mainstream medicine, by way of a few simple pieces of legislation, they are trying to absorb this immunotherapy and kind of take it as their own. They're trying to patent different technologies and what have you.
But they're doing the same. Yeah, but they're doing the same as well, aren't they? With they're doing, because cannabis is sort of legalizing all over the place, and people are using it to treat all sorts of ailments. They're doing their own, like Monsanto and that are doing their own version of cannabis. But I mean, obviously, it's genetically modified, and it might.
That's right.
It's not going to really do a lot of good because it's obviously just going to be the same Frankenstein sort of product that they've delivered with everything else. So, but they're definitely trying to get their arm in and push everybody else out of the way. There's no doubt.
Well,
but
I was going to go ahead.
The upside of that, if it creates a shift in this culture of treating people with cancer with radiation, chemotherapy, surgery, then that's going to be a good thing. Even if they do want to make money out of it, it's still got to be a good thing, because that's, in my opinion, almost putting people to their death.
Yeah. This is a true to life, like it's a battle for our minds, and that's kind of what it all is. It's all about trying to shape our preference and our choices to benefit another entity, if you would. Now, that being said, offering people choices and waking them up, like I said, it's a very slow and gradual thing. It's not too many people wake up instantly overnight. Like, they have to constantly be beaten over the head with it. And, it's true though, because that's what they do. When I say they, I mean the mainstream media does that to us on a regular basis with every single avenue they have at their disposal. It's absolutely crazy. And we're just the small, weaker voices in a larger crowd, and I really admire you for wanting to spread knowledge there, Sarah. That's absolutely amazing, and I'll back you up all the way.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, it's something I kind of promised the universe that I would do, or if I had a happy outcome. So I kind of owe it.
well, this is where we get to the best part, because we haven't really told people the outcome. Now, you've had several tests since you've been back in England. What's the what's the dealio there?
In August, I had, I think I've had 4 results. I did 4 nagalase tests, which is where they look at how much nagalase is in my blood. And I understand that you have a higher nagalase if you have any kind of infection. So that I think that they use it for AIDS and for cancer and for autism, I'm thinking.
I do believe so.
They don't test it for autism, but it does. Autism does show higher nagalase.
Okay.
They don't test it.
Anyway, I don't really understand the science part, but I know that that's a test that's used. And so we did 2 tests. I can't remember when I first started testing, but we had 4 tests in total. 2 of them came back, which were kind of quite high.
They weren't high. They were just over. They were over the baseline, but they were quite low.
The baseline was 28.
You was at 41.
I was at 40 something,
which is really low, really. But it showed that there was cancer in your system.
Yeah, and then the next test result came back at, I think the first one was 41, and then the second one came back at 41 point something or other. I was like, oh my God, it's not working. And then I realized that I wasn't taking some of my protocol at the exact times of the day that I was supposed to. So I was like, oh my God, how have I missed this? I was clumping certain products together so that they weren't working as they should.
Right.
So that was something that I could quite easily fix. So I just made sure I stuck to the letter and to the time exactly of when I should be taking this stuff. And then the third test that came back, which was in August of last year, August 2017, the test result came back at 26, which was below
Well, the baseline,
the baseline?
The baseline 28. The baseline 28. Anybody with 28 and lower basically don't have active cancer in their system. Obviously, if it goes above that, then it shows, and how much higher it goes over. It depends. It shows how active it is within your body. So Sarah had it. The previous 2 tests, it showed that it was active, but it wasn't really high, and and they stayed pretty much the same.
And I was testing every 3 months, so that was 3 months before. So that would have been sort of July.
So that was
No.
1, 2, 3. No, it was 6 months after.
Yeah.
So yeah, your third one showed that she went. We wasn't expecting. We was just aiming for it just to go down after we readjusted Sarah's protocol.
I think it was about May.
Right.
We thought we should start to see it sort of like just gradually go down, but it had actually gone right down. It's like it just sort of like it just went right.
Everything just worked.
It just went right under.
All of a sudden, I got well, and then.
Well, you was well, and you was well.
Well, I was well. Yeah, absolutely. I was good. I was feeling good. But
you're all clear.
So I had my all clear in August, and then 3 months after that, we decided to do another test,
just to confirm,
just to make sure it wasn't an error, or So I was still taking a bit of a protocol. I started to wean myself off of some of the products, the more expensive products, but some of the stuff that I've been taking, I even still take now because I just want to keep myself well, and I just think I've learned all this knowledge. And I know what all these things can do for me, so why would I stop taking them? The things that aren't relatively expensive, I will always do those things.
But they're the things that basically everybody, all of us should take anyway. Like probiotic every day, and vitamin, making sure
Vitamin
you're vitamin D and vitamin C. It's your basic vitamins and minerals, really, which is what everybody's lacking, isn't it?
Yeah, and working certain kinds of food into your diet as well.
Definitely,
yeah.
But I know all about the certain types of foods, and I still juice every day. Because why wouldn't I? I've got what I need to be able to juice. I know how to juice. It takes 5 minutes, not even that. So, this is just good practice now for me to always live this way. And so then, so November I had the second test results back, and they were the fourth results back, and they were good results too. I meant the second good result.
Right.
So the second clear. Yeah, that's what I meant. So that came back November, and what we'll probably do now is maybe another test in, say, 6 months, and then after that I'll probably just do once a year. So,
excellent.
Yeah, but it's taken a while for me to actually have it sink in that I don't have cancer anymore.
Well, it's one hell of a hit, it's kind of a punch in the gut when you get the news. I mean, your mind will race. You'll jump forward, in your head and think, oh, what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But you visualize it. This is something that I've always done whilst I was trying to get well. I visualized the day that I was told, it's gone. You have the all clear, So that was something that I just kept hold of. But it's just a weird transition going from thinking, things might not work out.
Well, you was thinking, I suppose it's all the things that I suppose we were thinking about. I think Sarah was thinking, I might not never see my 40th birthday, or I might not see that. Like, it's obviously our little girl's birthday tomorrow, and it's like Sarah's thinking I might not never get to see that. Back a couple of years ago when she was born, she was like thinking I may never get to see that.
Well, I also thought I would die in childbirth because I had a tumour in my brain and it might pop. Even though I don't even know if that can happen. But these are all the things. These are all the demons that you have to keep a check on. And actually, I did have those negative days, but actually the 99% of the time I had to say to myself, you are well, you are cancer free, you are good. I had to make myself believe it, because I think that, again, that is part of the process. That is part of the process of being well.
That's 50% of your immune system right there is your emotional level. I mean, without that, you only got the other 50% to stand on, and if that's if that's riddled with infection and other other business, then you're not doing so good. That emotional part is the most important.
Yeah, definitely. I think you could you could take the best sort of medicines in products in the world, but if you've got a real negative attitude to what you're doing, then none of it's going to work.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
The mind is certainly higher than the physical side of things, and if the mind, I'm pretty certain that you could probably heal yourself just with your mind if you was that well tuned. But
well, we're all human and we all have these doubts, and it's important to not you got to express it. It's important. You know, I did a lot of work with a counsellor not to repress these emotions, not to repress it. So if you feel it, is to let it out, but then to let it go, you know, and not be defined by that and not let that own you.
Yeah.
You know,
you have to own it.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, you know, definitely. I mean, I just think that, you know, your mind is definitely, it could be your best friend or your worst enemy. You know, and you've just got to make sure that you've got it as your best friend.
And you just have to feel empowered, really, that, you know, you have the ability to do it. You know, you have an amazing body, you know, that does amazing things. You know, my body,
Thank you.
It grew a baby inside of it whilst it had cancer in it, you know, and that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What would you suggest to anybody in a similar situation as your own?
I think that the biggest thing I would suggest is to not be led by fear, you know, so don't make any decisions when you're fearful. I think you need to realize that you have time. Even if you're diagnosed with cancer, you're not going to die the very next day from that diagnosis.
If the doctors, the doctors tell you that.
Well,
because they will
if you
tell
believe it, then you might. But you know, that's another thing. You know, you shouldn't
just don't take anybody's word for it. I basically, you know, on either side, you know, get the people's opinion, but then go and research it, because the information's out there, and then go and see, you know, and if you can find that confirmed by several other, you know, doctors confirming the same thing, and I'm not just talking about mainstream doctors, I'm talking about doctors on the other side of the spectrum as well. Then you know that, you know, they're telling you the truth. You know, there's always ways to check a check system. You know, we checked everything out. You know, the pros and cons of everything. You know, before any decision was made. You know,
but it's also about following your gut feeling. You know, you have to really be in tune with how you're feeling about what people are suggesting for you. You know, and you have to remember that you are the decision maker. As an adult, you decide what happens, and you have to live with the decision of that, or the consequence of that, whatever decision you make, you know. So if you take the alternative route or if you take the conventional route, you have to live with the consequences of what that's going to do to you. You have to, and I think that it's important to make informed decisions. It's really important to know the detail about what might happen or what would be the side effects of this, that, and the other treatment. It's and one of my favourite quotes from a doctor on The Truth About Cancer. The Truth About Cancer is great. It's so informative. There's so many different doctors on there with lots of really valuable advice. And I think the doctor was called Dr. Garston, and he talked about how it's a doctor's role to empower the patient to get well, not to fix the patient. So, you know, a doctor doesn't heal somebody. A person heals themselves with the knowledge that the doctor gives them, you know. It's about being empowered, and that resonated with me, and I was like, absolutely, you know. So I mean, I've had some wonderful people around me, and Mary has been fantastic, and she has been, you know, I cannot thank Mary enough for what she has done for me and my family. But, you know, and she's given me the knowledge that I needed, but I've had to do it for myself, you know. She's given me what I've needed, but I've had to do it for myself. I've not given the power over to anybody and said, oh no, I'm a victim, help me, I'm poorly, fix me. I've gone, do you know what? Take responsibility. Take responsibility.
Even in the dentist chair.
Absolutely. You know, I had this, like, they put like a blanket over my head.
There used to be a day, there was a time when your dentist used to do it all. The dentist was also your surgeon and also your psychiatrist and your pharmacy. I mean, but, you know, that was like, what, in the 1800s now? We've come a long way since then. Unfortunately, we've also become a busier world, and there's a lot of other powers that are driven by money, and you know, the sense of health care has kind of gone away from the care side of things.
I don't think it's health care, isn't it? I think it's sick care. It's sick care. It's care for sick people.
Correct.
I think when you look at mainstream medicine, I think it's brilliant when it comes to things like fixing people with, operations on fixing people, broken arms, broken bones, heart, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. But then, you can see that the reason why all that stuff developed, because there's money in, if they're developing, plates to put in your body and all the rest of it, you can understand why it would be advancing in a positive way, because that's where they make their money from, helping people in a positive way. But with I think, you know, with illnesses, it's different because
chronic disease,
an illness, if you can cure everybody of cancer, you know,
you wipe out
in an actual way, then there is no industry, there's no business model, and it's a massive bit in it, you know, and it is true, it's a massive, they just so hundreds of billions of pounds, you know, on cancer treatment, and then you look at the statistics, you know, and when you go and check out the actual true survival rate, it's like 2%.
Yeah.
You know, 98% of people die from their cancer treatment. You know, they don't even die from the actual cancer. They actually die from the chemotherapy.
That's true. And most people that survive their chemotherapy and, you know, their cancer and subsequent chemotherapy, most of these people would have survived the cancer anyway, statistically speaking.
Yeah. And that's true. You know, their body would have probably gone through, and I think, you know, that's something we say about your dad, because there was a point where he just said, I've had enough of this now. He just basically said, I'm not doing it. And then he lived anyway, you know. So it was I just think that was in spite of everything they'd done to him. He survived that because I think he just had enough, and he was like, right, I'm just not going to put up with this now. I'm just going to survive anyway. And he did.
And sometimes being a little pissed off at your doctor, that gives you the gumption to you know, that might improve your immune system, you know, that fight or flight survival sense, you know.
Absolutely. I think the other thing as well, what you notice is that everybody in the mainstream healthcare system are victims. It's such a victim mentality that they put you in. I'm a victim and we're going to heal you. You know, I'm a victim. Whereas in the alternative, it's not. You're not a victim. Just pull your boots up, look out there, and get on and heal yourself. Do you know what I mean? It's a totally different mentality. You know, and it's an empowering and enlightening one. You know, whereas when you're in mainstream, it's very depressing, and you feel like you have and you're waiting for these people to cure you, which, you know, in a lot of cases, unfortunately, they don't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of clinical arrogance around, you know, people that, I don't know, that I don't know. I don't know if they got into medicine and their intentions were great, but, you know, somewhere along the lines.
I think a lot of doctors' intentions are for the right reason, but they've been indoctrinated into a system.
And compartmentalized.
Absolutely, and they don't realise that a lot of what's going on the outside of it, and they've been told that that's all nonsense. That was proved nonsense like 50 years ago.
And the surgeon that I saw, I asked him at the time, have you ever had anybody heal themselves from cancer using alternative treatments? And he looked at me and he went, no. And we kind of came out of that, and I said, what do you think of what he said? And Simon said, I think he's lying personally. But it's funny because they called me quite recently, actually, to catch up with me. How was I doing? And
they probably was expecting to speak to me and me to turn around and say, she died.
She's died. But anyway, I turned around and I said, you can tell your surgeon that now he does have somebody that's healed themselves.
No, you said to him at the time, I'll be the first then.
I did. I was a bit arrogant right back at him, you know, because I just thought, you know.
How dare you? You know, it's like he's just saying, if
but
you
then
don't
again,
do it my way,
that was that arrogance of, well, no.
I'm the expert.
I'm the expert in this field. You don't know anything.
Oh, I've read peer-reviewed journals and blah, blah, blah. And
yeah, of course.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's the thing. But the thing is, so have we now. You know, that's the thing. And all the research that, you know, as time's gone on, done a hell of a lot of reading by a hell of a lot of doctors. You know, and you'd be amazed at, you know, like the people that won Nobel prizes up until, you know, the industry that's around now in the medical system. Everything was like natural. All the people that won all Nobel prize, you know, were all doctors practicing like natural medicine. Until it got taken over by, you know, the Rockefeller Foundation and all the rest of them pushing all their petrochemical stuff, you know,
and the pharmaceutical industry.
You know, and they just took it over, and they put everybody else out of business and took it over and made it their own, you know, and siphoned all the money into their own bank accounts.
And the guy who did some research into oxygen therapy, he won a Nobel Peace Prize, you know, and how he stated that cancer cannot thrive in an oxygenated environment. And so when I said to the surgeon, who I was under his care at that time, because it was very, very early days, even though they didn't give me any care, we just had a couple of meetings, I asked him to sign a form.
Well, you had to get a doctor.
I needed a doctor to sign a form for it was actually an MS centre where they did oxygen therapy, but you needed to have a form signed to say that was okay, you could have oxygen therapy. So he said to me at the time, can you sign my form? I want some oxygen therapy. He said, Well, I don't know anything about oxygen therapy. I don't know if it's beneficial or if it's not, but I will sign your form.
Oh, good on you. Good.
I don't really care what your opinion is. I just want my form signed.
Yeah.
But when I went away and thought about it, I thought, how irresponsible of you to not know this, to not have read that research or read the book or even know anything about the benefits of oxygen therapy.
But I thought that doctors anyway generally would have known that, because oxygen therapy, obviously they use it for MS and maybe not so much unless you're in the know with when it comes to cancer, but certainly when you have serious wounds and injuries, or a lot of sports people who have injuries, they get sent to oxygen to help their wounds heal faster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ballers who who are making all the money for their football club, and turn over millions of pounds, they want them to heal pretty fast, so that's what they do. They send them to oxygen chambers for their wounds to heal quick, and it's like, how did a lot of doctors know this. So when he was saying that, I couldn't believe that he isn't aware that oxygen's good. We need oxygen to survive.
I've seen some younger traditional doctors, especially when I was in Mexico. There, I saw one or two just absolutely lose their mind and run across the room when they saw an empty syringe being injected into someone's bloodstream. Now, this is ozone therapy, and it works. It's fine. There's no danger whatsoever. But it just didn't make sense in their rational brain. It just made no sense at all.
Yeah.
And that is, and based on those facts, I think that is why you shouldn't 100%. Well, you shouldn't put your trust and hand your health over to a doctor who has only had set amount of training on this, and this.
That's right.
But the majority of them haven't had any training on nutrition, and that's the foundation of good health.
Well, it goes right back. It's kind of ironic because these people swear the Hippocratic Oath, yet it was Hippocrates who said, "Let food be thy medicine." So it's funny.
Yeah,
it's a perfect example of how.
But the whole do no harm nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's definitely right, and it is the foundation. You can take your, as part of Sarah's protocol. Obviously, when you have a serious illness, like you have to take supplements, but really, you need to. The most important thing is foundation is to get your diet right first, and that everything's built up from that. And obviously, for general people every day whose health's pretty good, that's all you need. Just to keep yourself really healthy, do exercise and a really good diet.
Yeah.
You only need to take all these extra, the supplements that if you start to get a specific disease and you're lacking in certain things, and you need to boost them up. Obviously you need to push them up quite high to kill off the baddie that's in your system, so.
It's like vitamin D3. You guys live in England. It doesn't get sunny there often.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you might need to supplement your vitamin D3 intake that way.
Yeah,
But that's the only time supplements should really be taken is in the absence of a naturally occurring thing that you need.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because when I was pregnant, they said that my iron levels were down and I needed to take some folic acid. And I didn't realise that folic acid is the synthetic
version of vitamin C, isn't it?
Of folate, I think it is. I think they call it something. I can't remember what it's called, folate or something like that. But anyway,
I can't remember what it is myself.
It's iron. It's in spinach, So there are lots of food groups that you can start eating more of to up your levels.
Yes.
So I took my packet of folic acid, and then I just went home and ate lots more spinach.
Nice.
I did just fine.
Naturally. Well, that's been about an hour now. I guess we can pretty much call her there. Is there anything you guys would like to add in closing?
So
I don't know.
I'd just say to anybody that's out there, it's, the most important thing is just don't believe. Everybody, I think, in society is general. Everybody's sort of put into the. You're basically told that here's your reality. This is the box, and this is the reality that we've created for you. All the media, everybody that surrounds you, and you realise that, and they tell you that anything's outside of that box. That's where all the crazy people hang out. All the conspiracy theorists and all the wacky people, all the people that smoke loads of weed. They all live in this outside, but that actually is the reality. The box that they're trying to keep you in is the non-reality, and that really is the truth. The world is upside down, And just and as bad as it sounds, just look out, because you start to realise that that's where the truth is lying, and they desperately don't want people finding to be able to heal themselves. Taking empowering themselves, because having help these, the like they call them the 1%ers. If everybody started to empower themselves, then they would be in real trouble, wouldn't they?
Absolutely.
And for me, I think it's really, really important. Once you've made your decision of what route you're going to go down, and you're committed, it's important to surround yourself with people that support you. It's really important that you have a good support network. And if people don't support you and they're putting doubt in your mind, then you take a sidestep from those people.
Get rid of them.
And absolutely. And you need to put yourself first, and you need to sort of sever ties with certain relationships. And then maybe when you're well, you can revisit them. I don't mean to cut these people out of your life forever, but I think you have to really concentrate on you, because that's, I think, one of the messages from cancer, of it. You need to concentrate on you. You need to stop thinking about everybody else, and you need to start healing you and putting yourself first.
Yeah. And something, and having said that, leading from the front is very important. And to be an example, instead of trying to change other people's opinions and minds, just do it yourself. And, the proof is in the pudding, as they say, and others will definitely see it and maybe reconsider their own actions.
I always wanted to inspire people, and just having gone through this experience, I know that I've inspired several people to start living differently or doing different things. Or, many people have come to me and said, if I were to ever get cancer, I'm coming straight to you. I want to know everything that you know. And that's really been quite touching, that I've made an impact, for people. Yeah. So I just hope we can continue to do that.
That's great. It's like Michael Jackson said, you got to start with the man or woman in the mirror.
That's the mirror.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That's many songs I listen to on my runs. I like a bit of Michael Jackson when I'm running. Very inspiring stuff.
It's totally true, It's totally true.
All right, guys. Well, I won't let you go on too late here. It must be pretty late there, 8 or 9 o'clock at least.
No, 20 past 10.
20
but
past
that's
10,
all right.
Robert.
That's not too bad for us.
20 past 10, eh?
Is it?
Yeah.
You.
Right. Well, I just want to thank you guys as always. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, and you're always in a good mood every time I talk to you or see you guys.
That's because we're talking to you, Robert, isn't it?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's good to talk to you.
It's been a pleasure, Robert. Thanks for the time you've put into doing this. I appreciate it.
Hey, anytime I can make my gear work.
Yeah. Well, Sarah have to send you some pictures then, isn't it?
I will do, yeah.
Yeah, and then I can put that into the video, and this should be up online within the next few days. I got to do the audio mastering and build the video file, but I'll also group it up with, I'll put links to the other videos that you did while you were down in Mexico with us, and that way the listeners will have full story.
And when I actually get round to, making this website of mine, I can send you links and stuff, and hopefully you can add those or just point people in that direction.
Oh, absolutely. I'll stand behind you on that 100% because I'm all about it.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thanks, Robert.
All right. Well, thank you guys, and I guess with that, I'll let you go, and I'll record an outro separately.
No, whatever you want to do, mate. That's cool.
Thanks, right. Robert. It's been lovely chatting to you. Hopefully speak to you again at some point, maybe.
No, definitely.
I look forward to it. Okay,
if you want to come to England, you're more than welcome to visit.
Well, I'm going to have to make some money, but yeah, I would like to.
One day, eh?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, well, you have a lovely night.
And you, Robert.
And you. So what time is it there?
Oh, it's only 5:20 in the afternoon now.
Oh, right. So
we have good evening.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Good a late afternoon then.
Yeah, right. Okay, thanks, guys. You have a great day.
Take care. See you.
Bye now.